Welcome to the Atheist Azan podcast. The following shall be my take on some crucial survival aspects for ex-Muslims living in third world countries like Bangladesh. Please note that my intentions are not to offend anyone. I'm creating this simply to bring light to a subject matter from the perspective of someone who deals with it on a day-to-day basis. Let me begin by addressing the more youth-oriented individuals, especially those who feel a bit too eager to prove themselves as rationalists, secularists, or as free thinkers. You need to understand that rationality does not require you to be a martyr, and a martyr is exactly what you'll end up as if you're not cautious enough. I know it may sometimes feel overwhelming to see the sheer amount of hatred, bigotry, and outright barbarism caused by ancient superstitions, but you must hold on to your mental composure and prevent yourself from being identified as a kafir or an infidel or a gnostic or whatever label they choose to bestow upon you to justify your swift transformation into a more compliant cadaver. Your life and personal well-being are not worth risking for any cultural creed, no matter how profound they may seem at the time. Just take advantage of the fact you're young and get a head start on becoming the best version of you, unrestricted by nonsensical dogmas and doctrines. Just in case I was not clear enough, do not consider the concept of self-sacrificing your youth for the greater good, because when you really get down to it, there isn't and shouldn't be anything greater than the sanctity of your own conscious self. Besides, self-sacrificing isn't really the secularist MO. To be honest, thanks to the internet, the general progress and spread of information will more than suffice to combat most forms of religious extremism. So if you're just starting to question religion or have left it recently, please, for the love of God, do not go on a confrontational spree with religious members from your friends and family. Please do not turn into one of those overtly out loud and proud skeptics. Not only is that profoundly dangerous, as it makes you a very visible target for fundamentalists, but it will also burden you with a tremendous amount of unnecessary societal disadvantages. Trust me, free speech and expression are just not worth the trade-off when you're living in the third world. I would advise the contrary. Indulge even deeper into religious rhetoric and try to understand the nuances from the perspective of not just an ex-Muslim, but also take into account how your former Muslim self would have processed such information. Do not, even for a second, think you're any smarter just because you've managed to recognize the futility of Islam. Such infantile arrogance will only have you replacing one set of dogmatic principles with another. In other words, withhold from thinking anyone who still believes as being moronic or intellectually inferior to you. If you truly want to be smarter, then begin by studying the origins of such fundamentalist beliefs. Read up on the Quran and its many inconsistencies and its so-called scientific facts. If you're going to reject something, make sure you educate yourself with the proper factual evidences that back your claim. Understand that Islam by itself isn't the absolute manifestation of evil, but compared to other major religions, it is, subjectively at the very least, the most socially dangerous and intellectually crippling. I'll explore this aspect in further details on a later episode. Being an ex-Muslim myself, I know the mental and social isolation that comes with the loss of one's religion. This can be even more depressive for those living in communities that equate religion to quality of life. Fortunately, the remedy to this depression is education. And by education, I'm not implying college degrees. I mean a lifelong commitment to researching and analyzing your thoughts, doubts, and personal biases. Develop a sense of analytical humility to counteract your judgmental and emotional ego. Befriend your doubts, embrace your mistakes, flirt with contradictions, and romance your inner skeptic. There are no taboos your mind cannot comprehend. Indulge your inner curiosities and sharpen your researching capabilities. A subsequent perk to the widespread emergence of the internet is that you're likely to encounter a myriad of like-minded individuals, and even some from opposing schools of thought. Engage with them and share your ideas and personal stories. Keep an open mind when interacting with others, and learn to withhold your judgment and personal biases before hearing out the other side to completion. This will also give you the opportunity to practice and hone in your sense of critical intuition. That being said, I personally find it better to complement my intuition with a healthy dosage of analyzing related data and validating citations and sources to rule out any subconscious predispositions I may still hold. It is, however, highly recommended that you maintain anonymity throughout all your online interactions for an added layer of safety assurance. And speaking of anonymity, avoid liking or joining any skeptic or atheist groups publicly through your personal social media accounts. If necessary, create alternative accounts with pseudonyms and ensure that you cover your digital footprint. Do your best and double-check your online presence so that nothing compromising can be traced back to you. The internet is a double-edged sword, thus a healthy level of paranoia is perfectly justifiable. Remember, all it takes is one triggered fanatic to cause a permanent alteration to your existence. On the brighter side, most fundamentalists in Bangladesh aren't really computer savvy, so it's not really something that should keep you up at night. One of the earliest epiphanies we ex-Muslims have is coming to terms with how our initial sense of isolation is in fact a product of religious social construct. Islam, to its credit, is surgically crafted to disparage apostasy, utilizing the most inhumane means imaginable. Some of these include the rejection of inheritance, disownment from one's own family, and of course, death. As grim as these dogmatic deterrents may seem, in actuality, they are laughably exploitable. The most reliable tool to ensure your safety is your ability to simply lie about your belief. This may not seem very sexy, provocative, or even dignified, but that is precisely the point. Maintaining a false facade of piety, even at a minuscule level, will ensure your physical and social well-being even whilst being surrounded by extremists and fundamentalists. The truth of the matter is, it isn't that hard to delude the already deluded. At the end of the day, be publicly ambiguous about your atheism. Know you're not alone. Let me re-emphasize that. If there is one thing you can take away from my podcast, is that you are not alone. The number of ex-Muslims in Bangladesh and around the world are growing at an exponential rate, and it's only a matter of time till we hit critical mass. Islam, like all of the forms of organized religion, is crumbling from within thanks to its superstitious doctrines and rigid stance on human behavior. Recognize the direct correlation between a rise of societal intelligence and the loss of religious belief. There is no point to rushing a secularist revolution if it comes at the cost of your safety and well-being. Islam will fade like every other religion before it. Let's give it the one thing it denied to so many. Let it die with some semblance of dignity. I just want to end the podcast by saying thank you for taking the time to listen in. If there are any parts you think we have overlooked or should have focused more into, then please feel free to leave a comment below. Any and all feedbacks and criticisms will be full-heartedly taken into consideration. Just a quick reminder though, to any ex-Muslims and atheists in Bangladesh, especially those who may be using a shared family account or are using their real names, please do not post any comments as it might compromise your safety. As I mentioned in the podcast itself, use pseudonyms and alternative accounts to maintain anonymity. Stay safe and cherish your life. And as always, have yourself a great day. This is the Atheist Azan podcast, signing out.